Hello and welcome to the CloudStrategies Presents Making the Decision to Transition webinar. My name is Rose Rita and I'm the Marketing and Operations Manager here at CloudStrategies. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and welcome you to our webinar. Today's session will include a comprehensive overview of the cloud as well as some things to consider when making your decision to transition. So we have a very seasoned team of presenters today who include the following: Howard Cohen, who will actually lead us through our presentation today. And Howard has over 30 years of IT channel executive experience, and he served on many key vendor partner councils, including Apple, HP, IBM, and NEC Service Advisory Councils. We also have Clayton Wilkins, Territory Sales Executive, and Clayton has spent the past 12 years in the information technology industry, focusing extensively on delivering solutions for product procurement, engineering network and data center projects, desktop deployment, and complete managed services. So Clayton works very closely with the architecture and delivery teams, and he helps to design, propose, and deliver some cloud-based data center and also network solutions. And speaking of architecture, we also have Mark Gordon, and Mark is our Director of Architecture and Strategic Offerings. Mark is a key member of our team and an expert in cloud computing, and Mark has been applying technology solutions to business opportunities and challenges for over 18 years. So he's designed, developed, and implemented collaborative platforms and applications for companies of all sizes. So together, Howard, Clayton, and Mark will provide a comprehensive session, which we hope that you will find to be informative and of great value. So we really do encourage you to participate, ask questions, and if you have any questions, just please feel free to unmute your line and you can ask, or if you'd like, you can also just type your questions in the IM chat box as well. So we really do encourage your participation because that will kind of help us to modify our session to meet your specific needs. And we also will be recording this webcast, and it will eventually be housed on our website for future reference. And then immediately following today's webcast, I will follow up with each of you with an email message. So if there are any unanswered questions after the fact, then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, or if you'd like to be put in contact with a CloudStrategies representative, you'll also have an opportunity to do so at that time. So I would like to now turn it over to Howard so that we can go ahead and get started. Howard?
Thank you, Rose.
Sure.
Hello and welcome to our webinar on making the decision to transition. This is a challenge that many companies have faced over the past few years, and the pitch is picking up on it. It's becoming fevered. People want to understand the cloud. They want to understand why they would move to the cloud, what they need to do to get there, when would be the right time, where should they get their cloud services, and how do they do all of this. Fortunately, companies like CloudStrategies are available to help with all of those decisions, and that's the reason that we're presenting a little view into the way in which we approach this. So I'd like to start by talking about the cloud itself. And to do that, okay, when people talk about the cloud, you conjure up an image of a cloud. There is this something out there somewhere from which you obtain all these wonderful services. And that is a completely mistaken notion. There is no one particular, it's like the Internet. There is no one particular institution or organization or anything that is the Internet. The Internet describes a connection of many different disparate organizations and sources from which we can pull information. Instead of there being a cloud, the cloud, think of it as many clouds. You're not transitioning to a cloud, you're transitioning to many different clouds. You're obtaining services from a variety of providers, services like security, firewall protection and intrusion prevention, services like CRM, customer relationship management, services like email, anti-malware, antivirus, anti-spam, data backup. All of these are services that up until now you've produced or had somebody produce on your premises. But large organizations have discovered that they can produce those same services much less expensively and much more efficiently by taking advantage of economies of scale when you provide those services for a large number of customers. So there's an economy of scale here that we'll talk about as we move on. Okay? Again, the model is many cloud services from many providers. There are many clouds. That means that this is not an all or nothing strategy. You can pick and choose what you want to move when you want to move it. You don't have to take your entire IT infrastructure and suddenly move it somewhere else. That would be far too disruptive. And that's one of the things that holds a lot of people back. You know, there's no need for that disruption. You can pick and choose what you want to move when you want to move it. What you want to do is balance the benefits available from moving it against your acceptable level of risk. If you have line of business applications that run your business, you may not be ready to move those to some cloud-based provider. That's fine. But there are other services you can move to save money, which is a very compelling reason to do anything. So what we're going to talk about is spotting opportunities that will make the most of the investments you make in cloud services, and also help you make the most of the investments you've already made in information technology infrastructure. The most important advice that we can give you is take your time. Go slow and be stepwise about this. Analyze first, then make decisions, and that's really the consultancy that CloudStrategies represents. Okay, here's what's changed, and this may be a very good way of thinking about this. Traditionally, companies have a network closet or a data center into which they have somebody install servers, storage, switches, routers, power control devices, other communication devices that all connect up to all of the personal desktop computers, laptop computers, tablets, handhelds, and other devices that their people use either through a wired connection or a wireless connection. So traditionally, integrators have integrated hardware and software to create solutions for their customers. And those are the kinds of solutions you enjoy today. Here's what's changed. In the cloud, some services can be produced less expensively and more reliably. Okay, as an example, let's use the example of Microsoft Exchange. Okay, it's a very powerful email system with shared calendars, shared contacts, task management, all kinds of capabilities. To build a Microsoft Exchange server for your company is not a trivial thing, and it's not inexpensive. If you have fewer than a few hundred people that you're going to put on there, it's hard for some companies to justify that expense. However, Microsoft can deliver Microsoft Exchange far less expensively, so now you can subscribe to it for a few dollars per person rather than for thousands of dollars to build that infrastructure internally. So the large volume in producing these services creates economies of scale that we can take advantage of. So if you want to look at it this way, when you integrate hardware, software, and externally produced services, that's when you're getting into the cloud. Here are some of the key advantages to doing that. Number one, cost savings. This is the one that everybody thinks about first. You know, we break down cost savings, and you may have seen this in industry magazines. We break down cost savings into CapEx and OpEx. CapEx means capital expenditures, capital investments. So, for example, if you have a server in your organization that's been there for 4 or 5 years, in some cases longer, it's now starting to grow old. It's starting to malfunction. You have to have people come in to maintain it and repair it more often. It probably can't run the most current versions of server software and take advantage of current versions of technology. So there comes a point when that piece of equipment reaches end of life. In today's market, you have to go out and invest in a new server, and that can cost thousands of dollars. If your company has many servers, you may be investing thousands of dollars in many new servers. When you subscribe to server from a cloud provider, you don't have to buy those servers anymore. You avoid that capital investment. You're not laying out tens of thousands of dollars potentially, maybe even hundreds of thousands in larger organizations. Now, instead, you're paying a fixed fee, either per month, per quarter, or per year, to have servers available to you that are managed by somebody else in a fully automated data center with unbelievable controls and deep investments in management. So you eliminate future investments in server storage and a lot of your other infrastructure. Then there's operating expenses. Okay? Because you've eliminated the servers and the storage, you don't need as much of a data center. You just need to house your internal network that gets out to the internet. So you can really collapse down from a large data center to a network closet, or from a network closet to a small corner of a closet. Now, depending on the size of your company, that can represent a substantial savings if you either repurpose that space, sublet that space, or just stop leasing that space. So the first and foremost is simply physical plant. You don't have to spend as much on square footage. Of course, if you don't have servers and storage, you don't have to pay for electricity for them. They don't have to be powered. And if you went back to look at your bills, each of your servers costs thousands per year to power. So imagine $2,000 times 10 servers. That's a $20,000 savings alone, just on power. And by the way, cooling the room to keep those servers functioning properly costs twice that much. So you're saving tens of thousands of dollars depending on how large your server farm is. And when you don't have that equipment, you don't have to pay to maintain that equipment or to support that equipment. So potentially you can be reassigning technical staff to be doing far more productive work for your company than simply maintaining and supporting your servers and your storage. All of that collapses down into either a monthly, quarterly, or annual expense that you can predict and that you can budget. And it's very powerful. That's very exciting for many companies, and it's a big driving reason why many people are moving to the cloud. But there are others. Another reason people are moving to the cloud is the concept of business agility, the ability to run any application on any platform, over any network, to any device, anywhere, at any time. And truly, in the cloud setting, we've seen that happen. One good example, Clayton, I know you're out there. We had a customer up in the Northeast who had a challenge during Hurricane Irene.
Yes. Yeah, we've got a customer, and really the background of the customer. The conversation started with they had some aging servers running their Exchange 2003 and almost out of storage, and so they were looking at a CapEx expense buying new servers, growing. The company was growing. And they started looking at what other options do they have. They had been, as most companies, running their servers 3-5 years, and then it's just that vicious cycle. You've got to spend the money to upgrade your servers as your company grows or as technology changes. And they were pointed by Microsoft to CloudStrategies just to look at Office 365 and how that would eliminate the CapEx. What advantages came with Office 365? What were some of the hurdles they would have to cross? And they also were looking at Google Apps and found pretty quickly that the Google Apps wasn't going to work because of how extensive they were with Excel. And so they started going down the path of Office 365 with CloudStrategies. And then Hurricane Irene hit, and they didn't have a direct impact, but the day following their implementation into Office 365, their building lost power. And they were able to move the critical workers across the street, just take their laptops and phones across the street where they had power, and basically go right back to work because their office was in the cloud. And so they saw right away the benefits of moving into the cloud because they no longer had to depend on their current or their existing infrastructure and the building they were in to do business.
So there's a perfect example of agility. Those workers were able to move across the street to a building that did have power. From what I remember, several of them actually worked from home or went to local hotels where there was power. And as long as they had an internet connection, they were able to get to their resources and do their job. We've seen that. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to add another account that we have where they boast about the agility. Is they're a global company, and they move very quickly, and they've got employees that have never met, and they're constantly slowed down. The productivity was reduced just because of waiting for a response or calling somebody, getting voicemail. And they're implementing Office 365 and most excited about the link that's part of that with the video, the IM, and the presence that's available. So they're able to actually become more efficient on a global level and create some of that camaraderie within the organization from different countries as the teams are spread out around the globe as well. So it does actually increase efficiencies and productivity as well.
And that brings us to the next point, which is collaboration. Traditionally, when we think about a team collaborating, we think about an image like this: several people getting together around a table and working together. With Link, these 7 young people could be in 7 different states or countries. They can see each other, they can speak to each other, they can share presentations like we're doing right now, they can share Word documents. Using SharePoint, they can actually all be editing Word and Excel documents and seeing each other's changes as they work. So there are many advantages surrounding collaboration. That's a perfect example of them. Of course, these days, one of the big things is the consumerization of IT. Many users want to be able to work on the same device that they use for themselves, the same handheld, the same tablet, perhaps. And BYOD, bring your own device, has become very popular. The good news is with products like Windows Intune, you're able to manage the connection from every PC, every tablet, every handheld device, and you're able to push out applications to many of those devices. You're able to monitor them, secure them, many various capabilities at the desktop level, at the user level, which we haven't seen before. But thanks to the cloud, thanks to the centralization of this capability, you're able to tap into it to manage all of that. So another big advantage of cloud delivery is the ability to manage more flexibly and to allow your users to access information more flexibly. From a developer standpoint, some of you may be in the business of developing applications. Developers love the fact that they can work on a platform that has a complete host of development tools that will allow them to prototype, pilot, collaborate amongst a variety of developers to build an application, then quality assure it, and eventually roll it out. Systems like Windows Azure and SQL Azure give developers incredible capabilities that they really didn't have before. As Clayton pointed out, they had to wait until they had to do this serially, one after another after another. Now a lot of work can be done in parallel, which speeds the process, enhances productivity and time to value. So there are some of the driving reasons, the advantages that are available from cloud computing. Let's talk now about how to go about making the decision to transition. The first and foremost question to answer is why. And why, under no circumstances, is why a technology-based decision. This is not comparing one technology against another. The fact is that many of the same technologies you currently use on your premises, you can transition to using them from the cloud. So that it's the same technology. In other cases, the technology is not the decision maker. Your business objectives are the decision maker. It's the same decision as you have when you decide to buy or build an application. Most companies prefer to go out and buy, for example, an ERP system to run their business, to do their general ledger, their accounts payable, accounts receivable. That's not something that anybody feels they need to write. However, for companies that have special requirements, multiple repeat periodic billings, all kinds of different capabilities, they may decide to either buy a customization of or have a completely custom design solution. Well, it's the same thing here. You're going to decide whether you want to have it in-house or whether you want to save money and gain agility by moving it to a cloud-based provider. There are many implications, and we'll touch on many of them. Most importantly, you're looking for opportunities to increase your business agility, as we've just discussed, and to save money, which is a big driver for the cloud. You want to make sure that cloud computing fits your business. Look at your business. Do you have a lot of people who are not in the office? many mobile users, working from home, working from hotels and shows on the road. There are some companies now that are completely virtual, no bricks and mortar. They run completely digitally. So that's a good reason why cloud may fit your business. Similarly, if you have many branch offices dotted all over the country, and you want them to be able to connect together, share resources transparently. And the third thing that would vote confidence to the idea of cloud computing is if you have little or no internal IT staff and you're dependent upon a provider to come repair things that get broken or to come enhance things that need to be grown. Moving that to the cloud gives you great self-service capabilities where you're able to decide, okay, I want to add a user. It's as simple as going to a screen and saying, I want to add a user. Those capabilities are available from cloud providers that are not necessarily available when you're doing this in-house. So these are some reasons why cloud may fit your business.
So do we have any, I'm sorry, Howard, are there any questions up to this point? If so, again, feel free to unmute your line or type in the IM chat box. Any questions? I guess not. Okay, Howard.
Okay, let's keep going. Another thing that's driving many companies to make the decision to go cloud is the concept of using cloud to create a sustainable competitive advantage, to be able to reach customers faster, to be more responsive. As an example, if you wanted to have a call center, but you didn't have enough call center agents available to you in the city where you are currently located, using cloud computing, you could conceivably have call center agents all over the country, hire them wherever they're available. And suddenly you have an advantage where you have much more flexibility. You can do 24/7 coverage much more easily because you're in multiple time zones. There's a good example. Another is to be there before your competitors, to be the first one on the block to give your customers the ability to participate in your network by signing into your cloud. Other companies are taking advantage of new efficiencies created by the cloud, the ability to give them Exchange as a service, for example, or SharePoint as a service, or to use Link to do group meetings like we're doing today, where everybody can participate, you can see them, you can hear them, you can share applications. The other thing in terms of competitiveness is many companies are translating the lower costs that are inherent in cloud computing to reduce their prices and become even more price competitive. So being competitive is, again, another reason why you want to consider moving to the cloud. Let's talk a little bit about what you can transition. We talked before about the fact that it is not an all or nothing proposition. You can move this one piece at a time. In a recent survey of resellers, integrators, and other technology companies around the country, we discovered that the most popular first cloud service, the one that companies are investing in first, is data backup. It's a simple proposition. They know that they sometimes forget to rotate their tapes. They know that they sometimes forget to make sure that the backup process fired off. And many of them know that they very seldom test to make sure that what they've backed up will actually restore. And the worst time to find out that it won't restore is when you need it to. So many of them have decided to put that responsibility into somebody else's hands and to subscribe to a service that will automatically back up their data every night, every 15 minutes, or anywhere in between. Those services make sure that the media is sound, that the media is replaced, that there are multiple backups of the data. You can buy that personally now from many services. And it's amazing to think that your data, your photographs, your recordings, things you've written, are backed up in multiple data centers around the world because the automation is there to do it, and you're paying a few dollars a month to have that service. It's truly incredible. Now, many companies have decided to do both, taking what we've referred to as a hybrid approach, part cloud, part on-premise. The cloud part because they want to make sure that if something, God forbid, happens to their facility, they still have access to their data. But they also want a local copy because if something happens to one of their servers, they want to be able to drop in a new server and restore that data that day and not have to wait for it to come back down from a service or be burnt onto media that gets shipped. So it's absolutely viable to decide to transition to the cloud, but also to do the same thing on-premise anyway. because that works well for your business model. So pick the first service that you want to move to, and then pick the next and the next as you see fit. Some of the other services that are simple and more cost-effective and more reliable from cloud-based providers include antivirus, anti-spam, monitoring and management, software distribution, patch application. All of these are features, for example, of Windows Intune. That's just one product that will help you manage your clouds. There are others. Clayton, Mark, I keep forgetting to ask you if you wanted to jump in here.
You're doing great, Howard.
Okay,
Carry on. Thanks.
Okay. There are other services that become available to smaller and mid-sized companies when they're delivered from the cloud. We talked before about Exchange. Very powerful service. A company of 50 people would never dream of building an Exchange server, but I've seen companies of 3 or 4 people now who are happily using Exchange by simply subscribing to it. Similarly, there are many companies that are now moving their phone switch into the cloud. Lync will soon have a phone integration capability directly from Microsoft in addition to all of the third-party applications that are available today. You can move your entire phone operation to a communications environment that connects directly to your email, instant messenger, video conferencing, teleconferencing like we're doing here, and is incorporated and integrated into it very, very tightly. Video and teleconferencing, also information management and collaboration. Very few companies under a few hundred users would dream of investing in a SharePoint server previously. Now you have SharePoint tomorrow simply by subscribing to it, and you can start to put it to use in your company, allowing your people easy access to information and terrific tools for collaboration. When is the time to migrate? When you recognize cost savings that are available, services that you can obtain at a lower cost, the yardstick is you should see the cost startup recovered within a year to a year and a half, maybe even sooner. So if you see that you're spending X right now to do this on premises, but you're spending less to do it in the cloud, figure out what that delta is, how much are you saving each month, and then figure out how many months it would take for that to equal what you're spending now. And I think you'll find that it can be very, very rapid. If it's going to take longer than that, think more carefully, but a good yardstick, 12 to 18 months. Do everything you can to move CapEx to OpEx. There are many, many financial reasons to do so, many taxation reasons to do so. Talk to your accountant about where you have opportunities to move from CapEx to OpEx to save money and to improve your financial position. Remember, as we said earlier, cloud computing is not a technology strategy as much as it's a financial strategy. It's an opportunity to improve efficiencies, increase productivity, and reduce costs. And when you think about it, that's an amazing formula. You know, you pay less, but you get more. That's not the way it's supposed to work, but here it does. Another indicator of when it's time is when you find that you can improve your time to market, get to market faster with things. Your IT department may make this decision when they need to support increased agility. When you have a dynamic market where things are changing every month, every week in some cases, you want to be able to turn on a dime. You want to be able to put new information, new applications in front of your people. You know, we've seen environments where a call center had to roll its application out to call centers all over the country. By updating it on one server in a cloud setting, everybody got the new update instantly. Prior to that, they had a team fly around the country, updating in each city. It took weeks before they actually got an upgrade done, and by that time, another new version was out. That's not agile. But being able to centrally update a server and have all of your users connecting into that server, they get their upgrade instantly. That's extremely agile. So that's a really good reason to say it's time for us to move out to the cloud and run these applications that way. Web-based businesses that are running promotions on a regular basis, you want to be able to drive that promotion out fast, and you want to be able to respond when demand exceeds your expectations. By being able to provision and release capacity in the cloud, there's a concept called elasticity. With a cloud-based server, you can increase your storage, increase the memory, increase the number of processor cores with a simple few clicks on a management screen. And you can do it yourself if you want to. Well, with that ability to scale up and scale down, you can respond to opportunities like that. You can increase your capacity and not have users encountering an inability to access your promotion. So again, a very good indicator that now is a time when we want to think about moving to the cloud. As we stressed before, when your equipment is coming up on end of life, seriously consider not replacing it. Seriously consider not buying new equipment, rather subscribing to the services you require from that equipment. Turn your CapEx into OpEx. And when you have software contracts that are ending, turn those into software delivered as a service from the cloud. These are great ways to save money and increase flexibility, agility, productivity, all at the same time. When you realize, as the customer Clayton was telling us about, that your people are working in silos around the country, around the world, or even around the city, you have an opportunity to bring them all together without them having to fly anywhere, without them having to travel, without them having to incur all of that expense and loss of time in transit. You can bring them together by using systems that will generate more value by being accessible to more users. And remember, and this is one of those great statements I've heard over the years, information only gains value when it's in motion. Information sitting on a server in your data center isn't doing anything. When you put that information out there in the form of services to customer, when you put that information out there to your people to use in collaboration to build new promotions, new campaigns, that's when that information gains value. Where do you want to move your IT operations? Whose cloud? We talked about there being lots of little clouds. Whose cloud do you want to move to? And here, this is just common sense. You want to choose reliable providers that have a track record of great support. Large companies are a sure bet. Companies that have deep pockets and have performed admirably over the years are probably the best to turn to. Yes, you may be able to find a service that is cheaper, that costs less, but we've seen many CloudStrategies clients who had already transitioned to a service decide to change services because it was a false savings. Their provider wasn't able to keep up with the capacity. They weren't able to provision new capacity fast enough. They weren't able to support a growing customer base fast enough. You want to know that you're putting your information and your processes, your operations, with providers that you know you can trust. And it may cost a little more, but that peace of mind is worth it, and you'll still be spending less than you've been spending on premise. Okay, so we're moving into the summary stage. How do I do this? The first step in moving to the cloud, make decisions. Look at your business. Look at the things you're doing. Evaluate how much things are costing you. Look at your power bills and see how much it's costing you to run your data center. Look at your HVAC bills and your phone bills and your data network bills. Start to think about how much am I spending right now, and then do an ROI or a TCO comparison, a comparison on what total cost of ownership of a cloud-based service would be as opposed to the cost of the cost of your current service. In our last webinar last month, Mark took us through an excellent exercise of showing what that comparison looked like. I strongly encourage all of you to reach out to Clayton or his counterparts where you are and talk to them about how they can take you through that kind of decision-making process. Whatever you do, don't entrust your security to somebody else. Security is still your responsibility. So make sure that whatever security services you subscribe to are providing you with ongoing proof, ongoing reporting about the effectiveness of that security. Remember that most regulatory requirements don't only include proving that you've put security in place, but proving that that security that you provisioned is working. Carefully consider which application you're moving. Okay, you have to think about a lot of things. One thing you need to think about is the transition itself. How many people are using that application? How much downtime can they afford for the transition? You may have to be able to do that with no disruption at all, and that takes careful planning and careful execution. So be very careful before you decide to move an application. Think through all of the aspects of making that move and all the aspects of backing up the software, backing up the data, and making sure that you continue to have a well-managed environment going ahead. Once again, make sure your business decisions drive your technology decisions. This is all about the operation of your business. This is all about being financially healthier. So make the decisions based on the business impacts, because the technology is much easier to take care of. We'll assure the technology, but we want to be sure that we're serving your business decisions. Despite all your best efforts, always have a contingency plan in place. Never take a step forward unless you know you can take a step back. That's true in any environment. That's true in upgrading on-premise as well as it is here, but it's also something worth remembering. It's always key and critical. Have a contingency plan in place. Be sure that before you make a transition of any kind, that you're able to roll back if something goes wrong. A communications line may go down. A piece of hardware may fail. Anything is possible. So have that contingency plan in place. And perhaps most important, choose a reputable, knowledgeable, trustworthy partner to help you. Any migration like this, upgrade of a piece of software, they're all one-time events. It's very unlikely that you're going to invest heavily in training your own people to do something that's only going to happen once. On the other hand, the team at CloudStrategies does these kinds of transitions over and over again. We've invested heavily in making sure that these people have the experience, the expertise, the training, and the support that you need to make sure your transition, your migration goes smoothly. Finally, remember that your cloud strategy is a living planning document. It's going to change. It's going to adapt. As you move forward, you're going to suddenly discover new possibilities, new capabilities you didn't think of before. So your cloud strategy has to promote your sustainable competitive advantages. It needs to be adaptable and flexible to move with you as you move and as you grow. It must support your growth. With that, I'd love to open it up to questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask questions. You can type them into the IM window.
Howard, this is Clayton. I'd like to ask a question to those that are on. The traditional question of was this beneficial or informative for you, but even a follow-up question to that, are any of those in the audience looking at a cloud implementation as an initiative moving forward in the next few months or even next year? Or is this more just to understand a little bit more about what you hear?
I see somebody's typing a question or an answer. Okay, I'm going to need clarification, unless, Mark, you know what DAS is.
Desktop as a service.
You're seeking to offer desktop as a service. Are you a reseller of these services, or are you a consumer of these services?
So this is, yeah, I'd love to jump in on that, Howard, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so cloud, there's a number of opportunities, clearly, in offering desktop as a service. There's also a number of challenges. And if we look at the reasons that people generally want desktop as a service, it's primarily because they have a difficult time managing the hardware, software environment, the operating system environment, and keeping all of that up to date and connected online and managing all that wherever the person happens to be. So those are the top reasons we see people going to desktop as a service. So we're kind of at the point at which we've seen some services and done some testing and trial of those services that actually provide basically a remote controlled desktop environment. The challenges we've discovered there are, first of all, performance. Well, it's pretty good. Is somewhat limited on the back end in terms of how you store and how you manage data there. It can also be limited in terms of how you're managing the software environment, specialized packages that you need to have. Really, you haven't resolved most of the issues that we talked about with keeping your desktop up to date. We've just moved the problem into another off-premise environment. We've solved some of the problems, clearly, but we've really moved the problem more than we've solved it. So our general approach, if people are looking to gain a handle on their environment, have a standardized environment, know how be able to ensure that environment is patched, up to date, that antivirus software is managed and you're aware of any viruses or anything coming up, and that you have all the right packages installed on the right computers, and that you have a current operating system that's up and running. The solution we go more often than not with is a PC management solution from Microsoft that's in the cloud that does offer all of those things. So we generally are looking at managing the PC environment more than we're looking at removing it and moving it to another location, but there are cases where either one makes sense.
Well,
Go ahead.
in terms of those who are considering desktop as a service, to my mind, and Dwayne, please correct me if I'm wrong, but desktop as a service basically suggests that you're going to provide a total IT solution with all features and benefits from end to end for a specific fee. That means that your provider will put a desktop computer on every desk. They will support that, maintain that. This includes not only the software and capabilities that we see listed on the screen right now, but also the actual provision of the hardware. And that's where, for providers, it's a big cost decision to be made. They're going to own the equipment. They're going to lease it. From a customer standpoint, that's a terrific opportunity. It's a great opportunity because they don't own anything. They simply lease it as they need to. You have to make some serious financial decisions from a provider standpoint, as Dwayne is suggesting, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and then the other piece of that, Howard, is the licensing for the software that comes into use can be, let's say complicated. It can get fairly complicated in a big hurry when you go trying to deliver software packages in that environment.
That's very true. Okay, I'm just going to switch gears here a little bit, really quickly. There were a few slides that didn't make it into this presentation. First of all, for those of you who are interested in contacting CloudStrategies to learn more, we are absolutely easy to reach at www. That's interesting. Let me switch that. There we go. We're easy to reach at www.cloudstrategies.net. or info@cloudstrategies.net. But the easiest way to reach us is to telephone 973-630-5020.
Hey, Clayton, do you want to offer an answer to the question of how do you provide desktop as a service and maybe some of the desktop services that Office 365 provides?
Yeah, well, I guess my question is clarifying or wanting to understand better what we mean by desktop as a service. If it's just similar to, what VMware offers, which is VDI, which isn't desktop as a service, but it does move that desktop into the data center as opposed to having everything right there on the actual desktop. It won't be all inclusive, but as far as what most users interact with on their desktop, I feel that Office 365 covers a lot of that if you include their Office Pro Plus on that as far as what the user's using, not the support of it. With Office Pro Plus, you're getting your PowerPoint, your Excel, your Word, all of that. You've got Exchange Online, so you've got your email with Office 365. You've got SharePoint. So in theory, 90% of what a user will use is being offered as a service in the cloud. It's being backed up in the cloud. You've got the DR that Microsoft offers versus trying to set up your own DR system. So those mission-critical functions or applications that your users are using are already in the cloud. And then, as Mark was alluding to with Intune, you've got a lot of the support that comes with that for the desktop services. I'm not sure if that's where you're looking when you say desktop as a service or not.
Yeah, well, before we run out of time, Mark, Clayton, perhaps you'd like to just very quickly touch upon how CloudStrategies approaches this kind of planning, taking a look at the CloudStrategies framework.
Okay. CloudStrategies is a firm believer, and having been doing in this arena now really since before Office 365's inception, but one of the front runners for cloud solutions and being solely focused on cloud-based solutions. We've been able to learn along the way over the past 2.5, 3 years to where we're pretty efficient at how to approach every opportunity or the customers that are out there and understanding their environment. And Mark actually put together this framework or blueprint of how to get from the thought of does cloud fit my business environment to a full implementation and running in production. And I think the key to that is taking the time up front for cloud services or for CloudStrategies to sit down and learn your business. So we would bring in Mark or one of our senior engineers to understand how you're using technology today to drive your business forward. And from there, we can actually start building some proof of concept ideas. We can start building the architecture or the design of what your end state would look like. And then we back our way into how do we get from point A to point B. So it's the identify, the plan, and then deliver. There's 3 ways that we've seen over the past 3 years that this can be done. 2 of them work. One of them, it's not saying that the customer or the prospect does not have the IT skill set or the knowledge base or the ability to do it. It's the bandwidth. Most of the organizations that I've seen and that I've been able to help with their IT solutions, whether it be cloud or on-premise, is their IT staff is really, really stretched thin. They have multiple hats that they wear, and when you're looking at moving one of your on-premise applications or solutions into the cloud, it does take laser focus and uninterrupted focus. It's not something that you can start and then stop. And so the bandwidth issue really comes up. And so the organizations that say, you know what, we understand how to do it and we're going to do this ourselves, they tend to end up calling us a few months down the road saying, we need your help. We just don't have the time to focus on this, or they abandon it altogether and they don't end up making that move to the cloud. The other two solutions that do work are where you engage a partner like CloudStrategies that has the resources, the knowledge, and the ability to help move this from inception to production. And one of the ways to do that is a limited engagement. So we would actually sit down and work with you on the proof of concept. We would help design the blueprint or the roadmap to get from current state to the end state. And we would actually help with a percentage of the beginning of it and train you as we go along. And then we would kind of step back into the shadows and allow you guys to do the work as you move forward and be there as a help. If your bandwidth starts getting stretched, you can tap us and we can re-engage and continue the project along. That tends to work pretty well for some of the organizations that have multiple applications that are being moved. The third way would be it's all-inclusive. I've heard it said you hand us the keys to the kingdom, we get it done, and then we move out. And that's really, you're still involved with the planning. We're still teaching you what we're doing, because once the initial project is done and your company grows, you're going to be adding people, and you don't want to have to engage us on a full project every time you add an employee. So we do teach you how to move forward, but we go ahead and get our hands dirty, roll up our sleeves, and we do the heavy lifting, get you moved, whether it's bringing in other partners if you're moving from notes. There's another step that's involved if you're moving from a non-Microsoft platform. But then when it's all said and done, we give you the keys back. You know how to fully support it. You know how to add users, and we can also provide training for that. But it is a very thought-out, best practice model that we use that has contingency plans built in to where you can feel confident from the day you decide to move forward with it to the day we leave and you're full production in the cloud. You can feel confident that it was done right. I'm going to be talking here in a couple weeks to a pretty well-known organization out of the Midwest that have went through implementing Office 365, and they chose a partner. I hadn't had a chance to talk to them before they made their decision, but they chose a partner, and they are at this point wanting to talk to us to make sure that it was done right, because it seemed to happen too quick. There wasn't a lot of thought put into the plan. We may get in there and find out that it was done right, but they're just not confident that it was, so they're wanting to speak with us a little bit to verify whether or not they are in the cloud the way they should be. So that's kind of the way we approach it.
Okay. We're running right up to the hour. I just wanted to point out that today's session is part of a series that goes on all year. Last month we presented Cloud Economics, How You Save Money. If you missed that, please go to cloudstrategies.net and follow the links to our video section, and you will be able to find the recording of that webinar on the website. Today's session, Making the Decision to Transition, will be on the website shortly. As soon as the recording is processed, it will be up there, and you'll be able to access that as well. We hope you'll join us next month for How Secure is the Cloud Really?, talking about recent developments and updates in cloud security and statements that are coming out of many of the providers about how security in the cloud is indeed preferable in many cases to on-premise security. In June, Office 365 will be 1 year old. We'll be reviewing how that's gone, the roadmap to the future with Office 365. And then as we go forward, subjects like creating your own completely cloud-based office, mobility in the cloud, using CRM and Link to connect with your customers, the importance of managing your cloud from your own client device back to the network. Then, as we get to the end of the year, we'll talk about a comprehensive guide to planning for your cloud development in 2013, and we'll do an annual roundup of what happened in the year and what it tells us about the future of cloud computing. If you have any suggestions for topics for our series, please send the info at cloudstrategies.net. We would love to hear from you. We would love to be adding sessions based on your interest. That's what these sessions are really for. I want to thank you for joining us today. It's 1:30. We hope to see you next time. Take care.
Great. And just one last thing, Howard. This is Rose. So for those of you who have participated in today's webinar, we will be providing you with a Starbucks e-gift card to show our appreciation for your participation. So you can be on the lookout for that in your email. And as Howard said, we hope that you will join us again for our upcoming webinar series. And we hope you'll continue to learn more about the cloud with CloudStrategies. So if there are no further questions, then we will go ahead and conclude our webinar for today. And on behalf of CloudStrategies, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.